Dearborn Girl is a weekly podcast that catalogs the beautifully complex stories of Arab and or Muslim women from the Dearborn community. If you haven't heard, Dearborn, Michigan is home to the largest Arab Muslim population in any city outside of the Middle East. But for some reason, we are currently the least important characters in our own narrative. We know this show will inspire urgent conversation both within our community and within the greater Arab world, and we are thrilled to be at the forefront of a movement in the making. Listen along as we grab the mic and add some much-needed Dearborn Girl spice to your morning chai. Rima Fadlallah here, proud daughter of Dearborn, avid vibe capitalist, and professional love letter. And today's Dearborn Girl is Mariam Doudi, an avid traveler, artist, and resilient Dearborn girl. Mariam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking, Rima. How about you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. So we know that you love Insomnia Cookies. Insomnia Cookies is one of my favorite spots in Ann Arbor. And obviously, we love Dearborn. So tell us, if Dearborn was a flavor of Insomnia Cookies, what would it be?
It would be the s'mores cookie. So there's a nice base to it. There's a lot of different parts that go into the cookie, and they come all together to make this really good taste. And it's like Dearborn. So Dearborn has a lot of different parts to it, a lot of different people, cultures, and we all come together and we make this like really good melting pot.
Yes, absolutely. The s'mores cookie is actually one of my favorites too. So we're just going to jump right in. I know we've talked a lot about this, so I'm really excited to share this story with everybody else. What about your story makes you most proud? So walk us through the events leading up to your story today and specifically the areas that you're most proud of.
So I moved to Dearborn when I was like 3 years old. I was born and raised in Toronto, and then I guess I've been raised in Dearborn the rest of my life. Being here, it was a little bit different when I went to school because, so I knew I'm like Sudanese, I'm also like Omani and Tanzanian, and for me, I was like, okay, I'm an Afro-Arab. And then going to Dearborn and being in school there, it was like, no, you're not an Arab. And having that difficulty like fitting in because some people thought I was Arab and some people did not. And trying to be like conscious with my identity and trying to figure out who I am. So it did take me a long time like growing up to be comfortable with who I am. And then I did face like I lived in the south end of Dearborn. It was like a lot of Yemeni people and they weren't all super educated, so they were racist. And it wasn't because like they were trying to intentionally be racist. It was more of like we're not educated, we don't know what's going on and what's like socially accepted or not. And so I grew up with this feeling of like being really insecure, like low self-worth, and not really like knowing where I fit in because of like everybody around me. And I was like super shy as a kid. We had moved around so many times, and then we moved to East Dearborn. And so there it was a little bit more mix of different type of Arabs, and I kind of was able to like blend into the community more when they're saying like, oh, like she's also a Muslim, like she fasts in Ramadan, and we're all doing like the same things. It was easier for me to like fit into the community and be like, oh, okay, like I do have a place here. Right. And it did help me bring me out a little bit of my shell. And then really when I like got into high school, that's where I stayed the most when we moved to Dearborn Heights. And really having that good community of like, okay, especially when I put on the hijab, it was so much easier for people like, oh, like she's one of us, you know? Still, it was a little bit weird because when the others would be like racist, it'd be like, oh, we're not talking about you though, you're not black. And then it was like, oh wait, but I am also black, even though I'm like also an Arab. So try to fight with those two identities. Even like my parents, like they're kind of racist towards African Americans, even though they say they're not. I'm like, I know there's a prejudice towards them. Like you're like, oh, they're not like how we behave, and it's just different situations and how people are brought up. So definitely being conscious and like learning how to like empathize with people was something like growing up I did. And then I went to University of Michigan, and it was like all white people. All white people. So you're sitting there and you're like, oh, like I'm definitely not in my element at all. College is where I learned to have like more different types of friends. Like I was friends with Asians, black people, Arabs, white people. And it helped me a lot grow as a person because I became less shy. Like I was actually speaking in class. I mean, the classes I like. And trying not to let the situation, the circumstance judge me. And so at this point in my life, like I've had so many experiences through college. Like I feel like college is a place where I've definitely grown the most, and I love my experiences. And I'm at that stage in my life where I'm like, okay, I know what I want to do with my life, or at least the direction I want to do. I want to take control of my life. I don't want other people to be deciding who I am.
Yes.
And trying to tell me who I am. Like I know who I am, and going through all these like situations where I was kind of being like slightly oppressed, I guess, like internally oppressed because of not standing up for myself has like definitely changed like through college. Like I'm definitely now like, this is me, like I'm here, I'm gonna be the only black Muslim hijabi in Ross, and you're gonna have to accept me for who I am. And I think like it took me until I was 21 to figure this out, but I think that's what I'm most proud of in my life right now, like knowing who I am and what I want and going for it, and not letting people like tell me no, you can't do it, like going and getting what I want.
So first of all, you say it took you until you were 21, as if you're like 80 years old. It takes a lot of people like forever. Like some people never find that. So you should be really proud of yourself. And I have a few follow-up questions, if that's okay. First thing you talked about, I think one thing I would love to hear more about is growing up on the South End. I know you say when you talk about a lot of the Yemeni Americans being uneducated, I think you mean like specifically on the fact that you're Sudanese and that's a Arab, like a Arab identity as well. Personally, I know in my predominantly Lebanese area of East Dearborn, we would have been uneducated as well. I wouldn't have known. I would have been one of those ignorant kids, probably saying things like indirectly racist because I didn't understand that you could be simultaneously black and Arab at that age. So I want to hear more about, because I'm assuming how old were you when you were in the South End? Like when did you leave?
5 years old. So I left when I was 9.
Yeah, I want to hear more because those are like, even though kids are really young and uneducated at that age, those are moments that you kind of carry with you for the rest of your life. So I would love to hear more about what that experience was like, if there are a couple stories or like moments that you can kind of speak to.
So I remember definitely, so my dad got along fine with the community because like he's fluent in Arabic, like, and he wouldn't take anybody's like BS. Like my dad's very like, I'm an Arab, like you're gonna respect me and everything. But I was very like shy, timid person. And so I remember like little kids being like, oh, we can't play with you because you're black. Or calling me like Pepsi or something like that because I'm like the color of my skin, or like feeling very insecure about like the way I looked. And then my cousin finally like moved into the community, and because she was like the sheikh's daughter, she was like everybody was like, okay, friends with her because he's like the leader in the community. So I remember just like following her around on the playground and like not really being my own individual person because I was trying to fit in.
And she was your cousin from your Sudanese side?
Yes.
Okay.
And like even her, we were cousins by marriage, so we knew each other very late in like the game. And she was new to the community, but because she was the sheikh's daughter, it was so much easier for her to fit in. But then even with that, there's also the thing where like they're looking and seeing, okay, you are the sheikh's daughter, you're like this, you're related to the sheikh, how do you dress? Like, I think also with the Yemeni community, because a lot of them are immigrants, they're not like first generation Americans, second generation Americans, they still have those values from home, and so a lot of them are a little bit more conservative, so they're looking at you like, why are you wearing pants? Like, when it was younger, it was like fine, but like even now, like my doctor is still in like the South End, and so I walk in and I'm like, yep, I'm wearing my skinny jeans, and like haters gonna hate, that's it. And so, but it was definitely like a different experience growing up.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that I was interested in asking about was, so I love that you mentioned, like, you get to that point where you're just not allowing other people to tell you who you are and you're just putting your foot down. And I think, like, you kind of speak to it during your time in high school at Crestwood. Are there, like, key moments that kind of, because it seems like you were being pulled in so many different directions, like, okay, well, in this space, I'm not black. In this space, I'm not Arab. And, like, if I'm going to listen to what everyone else wants me to be, then who, like, which part of my identity do I get to keep? So what, like, moments kind of, like, planted those seeds in your head?
I think definitely in high school. So there were moments where, like, the black kids would get into fights, and then they'll call them, like, you know, the N-word in Arabic and avid. And I'll be like, you guys, like, that's not okay. Like, it actually means slave. Like, if you want to say black, say, like, aswad or something. And they'll be like, no, but we're not talking about you. You're different. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I am black. Like, do you guys not see the color of my skin? And it was moments like that where, like, and then going home and talking to my dad about it and being like, I don't really know what's going on. He was just like, okay, like, this is obviously not a good word to be saying. Like, you need to be strong and firm and, like, stand up for your people. And that kind of, like, I would start trying to do that. And now that I'm in college, like, I'm definitely doing it way more than I did before. But that kind of made me realize that, like, oh, they think of me as just, like, Arab. Like, they're not seeing my blackness. And I did have friends, though, where, like, when I tell them that, they'd be like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. Like, thank you. And, like, there's people are willing to, like, change and, like, tell their families about it and stuff like that. But other than that, like, I had, like, a pretty good high school experience. Like, a lot of my friends were, like, hijabis, too, or, like, Lebanese and all that. And we'd, like, get along. Like, we could talk about everything. We'd always, like, you know, be able to share the culture, the language, food. And that made me, like, really connect with them. And then a lot of, like, people in our community are super nice, too. And so I don't think, like, they're intentionally malice. Like, it's just ignorance. And so...
Have you found it hard to explain? So it's one thing to have to explain your identities to people who share your identity, but have you found it really difficult at Michigan to have to explain all of your intersectional identities to people who have, like, no idea what it even means to be, like, a Black Arab Muslim?
I feel like it has a little bit, but I feel like people are also not even asking. Like, especially in Ross, like, people just look at me and they're like, okay, like, that's who she is, but I don't know what that means. But, like, yeah, having to explain to my friends, like, no, like, I can't do this because I'm a Muslim. Like, also, like, in my culture, because I'm Black and because I'm Arab, like, we do this and we do that. A lot of people are a little bit more open-minded that I thought they would be at Michigan. And so if you just explain, like, they're willing to listen. But then there's also the people who, like, don't even care and they're going to be set in their ways. And I try to, like, avoid those people because I don't need to put all my energy into trying to, like, convince you when I know who I am, like, what it is. And if you want to learn, you're going to seek it out. But definitely, like, when hanging out with Black people, I'll be like, oh, yeah, like, I might have not shared the same experiences with you because I'm, like, African and I have this is what our culture is. And explaining it to them, and then also joining different groups, like joining the African Association, being in the Black Business Undergraduate Society, being in, like, Arab Student Association. Like, I like, mix around with all of them so that I can, like, learn from them as well.
That's awesome. So we talk a lot about you and your story, and I think we kind of touch on this, but my next question for you is, what problem or problems in our community do you wish that you could change?
I really wish that the racism could be changed in our community because I know that we're all, like, good people, and I feel like we're just not conscious of, like, where this racism started from. Like, it starts at the home, like, it starts from, like, the beled, like, when you came from back home, and not realizing that you guys are carrying it with you and that it affects the people in your community as well. And affects people when you go out of the community as well. And so I feel like if racism in the community could be, like, that's the one issue I feel like it could be solved a lot, especially because people in the Arab community are being targeted from, especially in Trump's administration, everybody else. So I feel like if you want people to be an ally to you, an ally for you, and to help you out, you need to also be helping out the people in your community, being allies for other minority groups, and standing together. Because if all the minorities stand together, we are so much stronger than the majority. We will be the majority.
It blows my mind that, I mean, obviously you shouldn't be racist because you just shouldn't be racist, period. But even just from, like, a strategic standpoint, like, you're literally fueling the same engine that's used to hurt you. And so that's my, like, if I were asked this question, that's my answer all day. I just can't stand it. When I come home and, like, see that same hate that I've felt in certain situations be put onto other people. Like, we literally live right next door to, like, a large Latino population and a large Black population, and, like, still feel that way. So it's mind-blowing. And I'm sure for you, like, being in it, being immersed in it, and, like, hearing things like, oh, well, you're not like them. Is that a compliment? Like...
Exactly. And then the thing is, too, is, like, the Latino and the Black community, they're also becoming, like, a lot of them are Muslims, so they are still a part of us. Like, the Muslims, the Arabs, like, we're all, like, together. We all share certain identities. You're just ignoring that they're sharing these identities with you. And, like, that's not right because we all do better together.
Yeah, definitely. You talked about us also being a targeted identity group. And obviously you're visibly Muslim because you're a hijabi woman. And my next question is, would like to hear your thoughts on on today's narrative of Arab Muslim women globally.
So I believe that our narrative is that we are oppressed. We are forced to put on the hijab. We don't have freedom. We don't even like what we're like. We don't like our culture. We are not, we need to be saved by these white saviors. And then there's also the thing where all Muslims are Arabs, and that's not even true. Like, majority of Muslims are like Malaysian or Indonesian, something like that, and they're all different types of colors, and so they kind of just all group us into one thing. They think that we're like, we don't have a voice, that we're irrelevant, basically, we're powerless. But Muslim women are out here, and Arab women are out here kicking butt. Don't want to like be out here cursing, but like Halima Aden, she was just rocking it on the runway for New York Fashion Week. We have Rashida Tlaib in Congress, like, yes.
Keep going.
I think it was Zahra Hadid or something her name was. She died like alhamdulillah like 2 years ago, but 3 years ago. She was a very big architecture. She was getting all these awards. Like, we have women who are out here and they're doing stuff and they're showing that we're not oppressed. We can fight. Malala, that's her name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are actually out here. We're strong, we're resilient, and we use our stories, and we have mouths, and we have a lot to say. And we cannot be oppressed by you guys. We're not oppressed. You guys are just not.
Who do they think we're being oppressed by?
They think we're being oppressed by, like, men in our community. Mm-hmm. But also by the religion. And I don't think that's true at all, because Islam definitely respects women, has let women have property first, and like, Islam definitely respects women and fights for our rights. And it's usually culture that comes in and plays a role in that. And they'll see, like, they only see the bad, and they never see the good.
Yeah.
And so they take the bad, and they're like, okay, this is the majority. But if we did that for, like, Christians, or not, like white people, okay, you guys came in, like, the Ku Klux Klan, like, for real, like, if we said all white people were like the Ku Klux Klan, they'd get mad.
We were just watching, I have to talk about this because this is too relevant. Last night, I was with a couple friends, Yasmin included, and we were trying to find something to watch on Netflix. But why did we find a show called Three Wives or something like that on Netflix? And it's about these Mormons. And I'm not disrespecting anybody. I have no judgment. But these white men had like up to like one man had like 7 wives, and it's this idea that they want to be closer to what God was like, and God is able to manage a civilization, and so therefore by having 7 wives and like X amount of children from those wives, you're able to manage your own little civilization and be thus in their view more godly. And I mean, judgments aside, I just couldn't believe that like nobody's really talking about this, because let it be like, and I'm not supporting or like, I'm just saying that had it been a Muslim, like there's always this narrative of like Muslim men being like hyper oppressive, and obviously like no community is like free from oppression. Women globally face oppression, right? But my problem, and I think this is what you're speaking to, is like people see a hijabi woman and they see a symbol of oppression, when it's like, to me, the most oppressive belief is that we should be telling women what they should or shouldn't be doing with their bodies. Like, that's oppressive.
Yes.
Like, because she chooses to wear hijab, which is a personal decision, she's oppressed. And that sounds like super oppressive to me.
Exactly what it is, because, and then white people, like white feminists will be like, oh, we gotta save her, like, oh, World Hijab Day, like, let's show people who, like, where we're forcing them to take their hijabs off and stuff, and it's like, you didn't let her decide that.
Right, exactly.
You didn't let her choose, like, okay, I want to wear this, or I don't want to wear this. I want to be in, like, modest clothing, or I don't want to be in modest clothing. It's my choice. Like, I'm a female, and I have a voice, and it needs to be heard. And it's not in the society, and it's not, like, everybody just thinks it's, like, oh, Arabs or Muslims who are oppressing people, but, like, looking at our society, the white man basically oppresses everybody in America. Like, white women still barely have a voice. They might have a voice more than us, but they still are oppressed. And so, in general, like, everybody, like, every community does have, like, a little bit of oppression, but it's not just us, and we shouldn't be, like, they shouldn't be focusing all their energy on us. Oh, we're terrorists. Okay, and then when a white man or a white person goes and shoots up a school, you're like, oh, he's mentally ill. Why can't we have that same, like, privilege? Oh, he's mentally ill.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always an exception when it comes to us, and it kind of perpetuates America's like propagated image of what it means to be Arab, so that when they do certain things in the Middle East, nobody asks questions, because, oh yeah, these people do need to be like saved, or they need us to intervene on their behalf. It's just kind of like this narrative that starts here, you know. Speaking of stories outside of America, have you traveled outside of Michigan And if you have you learned anything about yourself or your own community during this time?
So I actually lived in Spain for 4 months.
Oh, nice.
And so that was definitely an experience because I'm dumb and I did it by myself. I was like, I'm going abroad and I don't care. When I got there, I was like, why didn't I bring a friend with me? But it was definitely like a time of like self-reflection. Like I was living in an Airbnb by myself, basically, and it taught me to be very responsible. Like I had to get on the subway and go to class, and like when I traveled, like everything was me. Like I had to figure everything out myself, like my finances, like being responsible and like how the real world really is. And then also like I got closer to God because I was like, okay, you're my only friend here.
That's amazing.
But then also realizing that like we're social people as humans, and my community was definitely something that I missed. I remember like trying to try out all the like Lebanese restaurants while I was there. They're not as good as Dearborn.
Of course not.
And just trying to stay in touch to who I am. So I was definitely there, and I was like, okay, it's definitely different being like one of the few Muslim hijabis there. And I didn't want their culture to change me. So I definitely like embraced things of their culture. Like I definitely dress better than when I left. But I'm definitely like true to who I am, and like, oh, like my Arabness and my blackness, like the Dearborn in me. Like I made sure that I was like conscious of what's going on there. But I definitely was like, okay, people in Dearborn are in their like bubble, and it's because like you don't leave that bubble. And so definitely going out was like, oh, like this is what the other side of the world like lives like. This is what this is, and really just taking everything in, empathizing, learning how to empathize with people, and just be like a better person.
Yeah. Did people ask you any like weird questions when you were overseas, or like similar to like the kinds of experiences we were talking about earlier at Michigan? Like, did you get any weird? Because obviously, like certain places when you travel, especially as a hijabi, they know that you're a tourist. So were people like forward about asking you about your identity?
I think the language played a little bit a part in like not getting too many questions, but like some of the students would ask me, and then I was always very like forthcoming and nice about it. I did get yelled at when I was in like Paris, like walking on the street. My friend's like, "Oh, like he's yelling at you in French because like you're Muslim, whatever." And I was just like,
"What did he do?" Oh, but you didn't. You couldn't.
I didn't even understand.
And you felt like it was like specifically like he's saying like a slur.
He probably was, because he
Good
was
thing
like
you couldn't
in my
understand
face.
it. That was God protecting you.
Right. I was like, okay, I'm American, and you can hate all you want, but can't understand you either. So
wow,
I'm not gonna let you like ruin my good time. But that is something to be conscious of. Like people don't like us everywhere.
That's crazy. I'm just thinking about that, like how, because I feel so helpless. Like he's yelling, and I really want to know what he's saying, and I feel like it's hateful. Like, how did you feel? Like what?
Well, I got scared when because he came out of nowhere. We're like in a line here, like a pizza restaurant, and he starts yelling at me, and then I was like, oh God, like who's yelling at me? And then my friend, like what she got from the end of it was like, oh, so you're scared of me, huh? Like he was trying to be like all bad and big, and he was just like,
wow.
He looked like somebody who could live on the street. Like he didn't even look like he was like he looked homeless.
So he looked like he wanted to intimidate you, and then got happy that you were intimidated.
And I was just like. And the only reason I was scared was because, like, you came out of nowhere. Like, if anything pops out of nowhere, I'm scared.
Of course, yeah. So what do you wish people knew more about our community? Whether it be in Dearborn or even just our community, you know, being Arab or being Muslim or even being Sudanese?
So we're definitely good people. Like, especially, like, Sudanese. Like, hospitality is A1. We're the type of people in this community who, like, okay, the food portions at our restaurants are huge, and if you're like, you know, you're a little bit short, they're gonna like help you out. They're not gonna like kick you out. People in the community love to help other people, and we love to see each other succeeding. And so when we see somebody succeeding, you can reach out to that person and be like, hey, can you help me out with this? Or like, we want everybody to do good in this community, and we definitely like to get together and have fun.
Yeah. So with that, what is your favorite thing about being a Dearborn girl?
I love being a Dearborn girl because I know I will always have a place where I can come back home to and have a community and feel loved and like a part of. And I can take this identity with me anywhere.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Mariam, for being on the show today. We hope you had fun.
I did. Thank you for having me, Rima.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with some of your favorite Dearborn girls. If you haven't subscribed already, we have no idea what you're waiting for. And while you're anxiously waiting for next week's episode to drop, be sure to follow us on Instagram at dearborn.girl or visit us at www.afroardearborn.com. See you next week.